What is going on, everyone? My name's Andy. Welcome to another FPL video, and today it's the Game Week 34 preview. Obviously, this is a weekly video that I do. Done plenty of content this week for the Game Week 34 wildcard. This is kind of the final short video before the stream on Thursday, which will be 9 PM for anyone that's wondering about that. And I find this kind of funny because I've actually already recorded this video. And the way I've talked about it lots on stream with FPL content, that sometimes you make it and then there's a bit of news and it completely changes what you would have said, what you would have done. And usually I leave the video up because it's not necessarily over that big a news, or it doesn't affect too much what I've said. But I actually had this video scheduled to go out at 6 PM on Wednesday night. And I said in the video that I was recording it before Man City and Spurs. And I had to do that to get it out on time, and then KANE got injured, and that's such big news this week that I made the decision to delete that video and re-record it on Wednesday night. So I've just about got enough time to get it out on Wednesday night. So I won't take up too much more time introducing it. Obviously I'm going to take a quick look back at Game Week 33 now, then a look at Game Week 34 and my current wildcard status. So quick look back at last week. I won't keep banging on about this, but Hazard's been called a troll way too many times this season for someone with 28 attacking returns now. The highest percentage of returns against non-top 6 teams, I think. And again, just smashed it against West Ham. Probably deserved more, should have had a penalty. And ultimately 2 goals was great if you captained him. But even so, he could have had more points. That's how good he played. So love Hazard. Might be the last time I own him. Probably won't get him back this season, I don't think. And obviously there's interest from Real Madrid again, but that has happened before, so we'll see if anything comes of that. Salah over Mane. Obviously I was talking about Mane as my favourite Liverpool option this week. Salah got the goal, but he was pretty non-existent. His expected goals for that game were 0.09 from open play. Obviously it was a great finish, and maybe he's got a bit of his confidence back, but I'm still a bit wary of him because of his price. But yeah, unfortunate with Mane, and he got the yellow card as well. Leicester unstoppable on a really good run of form since Rodgers came in. Unless you called Harvey Barnes, he didn't do anything for me this week, which is a shame. But I had Maddison. Obviously, if you had Tielemans, well played, 1.7%. And it was a Vardy party, and I wasn't involved. I couldn't get him in. I already had 3 Leicester. And he was the one I was worried about, and it came true that he smashed it, got the same points as Hazard. So the fact that I captained Hazard and got 32 points, I'm not too worried about not having Vardy, but it would be really horrible if you didn't have either. The Wan-Bissaka Maguire roller coaster. So I had Maguire in Game Week 31. He got red carded. I thought this is the week for him to redeem himself. Was annoyed when he didn't start. He's just had a kid. Obviously, not annoyed that he's had a kid, but I wanted him to start for my FPL team. And I was already a bit worried that Luiz wouldn't play. And so Wan-Bissaka would come off my bench anyway. So when Maguire didn't play, Wan-Bissaka came off and Luiz got the clean sheet. It was really nice. So 71 points, really close to the top 10k now. I really want to break that in the next couple of weeks and stay there for the remainder of the season. And just to quickly say, Everton clean sheet again. I think that's now 5 and 6. Said that Arsenal might find it tough, and they did. So Everton at the moment, definitely not a team you expect too many goals against. We'll see if this hot streak of clean sheets continues, but they're looking really good right now. So this is the current state of my wildcard team, and I'm going to be completely honest with you, and hopefully some of you can relate to this. I'm actually finding it quite tough this week, because I'm making lots of excuses for why I don't want players. I can't find really, really good reason that makes me want to get 11 particular players. So there's a few players that are in here who I'm thinking, yeah, maybe I'll go for them, but I'm not 100% sure on them. So I'll talk about them as well. Obviously, there's lots to consider for this. It's not just a free hit. You've got the double game week in 34, the one in 35, bench boost, and the rest of the season to talk about. So I'm not struggling, I would say, but yeah, I'm finding it tougher than obviously the free hit for obvious reasons. So I'll talk through kind of some of my choices and then the talking points as well. So one of the things is don't forget your transfers. I feel like some people are planning this as if they're not going to be able to change this team for the rest of the season. We're obviously going to have a transfer in Game Week 35, 36, 37 and 38. So 4 transfers. You could potentially take some hits, especially if you smash it in Game Week 34 and 35. You can use some of those points to make hits if you need to. So don't forget that if you get a player in now, you don't have to have them for the rest of the season. So for example, if you think Man City have got it tough over the next few weeks, you could get them in when their fixtures ease up a bit. Same as Liverpool, they got Cardiff and Huddersfield in Game Week 35 and 36. Maybe you get rid after that, etc. Same with Vardy, Newcastle, then West Ham, and then 3 top 6 fixtures. Again, maybe you get rid of him once they come along. So don't forget you've got transfers. You can maximise them. For example, I might go triple Brighton defence and switch one of them to a Southampton or a Watford defender in Game Week 35. There's loads of things you could do. So yeah, don't forget your transfer. Salah no more. For me, I'm not going to go for him, I don't think. Yes, he scored the goal against Southampton. He looked good in the Champions League. Or looked okay in the Champions League, but For 13 odd million, I just don't think I'm going to pay that money. Now, to be honest, with Kane injured, it does get a bit easier to fit him in. And the Huddersfield game looks right for captain. But at the moment, I don't know if Mane is just that much worse of an option. And you save 3 odd million pounds as well. So I'm not going to go for Salah. I'm not going to talk about him too much. I don't. If someone put him in their team, I don't think I would call them crazy or really try and talk them out of it or anything. But for me, it's just not going to be for me. Hopefully, I can get through the Cardiff and Huddersfield game with Mane and Robertson, and that will be enough Liverpool coverage for me. Triple Brighton defence. So when I recorded the video yesterday, I had triple Brighton defence. And now I don't. And the main reason for that is because of Spurs. Because Kane's injured, I don't know if I now want a third attacker so I can fit Trippier in. I might still go for Lloris and get Dunk back in. So triple Brighton defence is interesting. The way I look at it, if you're thinking of going for it, is would it be out of the question for them to get a clean sheet against Cardiff? Yes, Cardiff are fighting for their lives, but Brighton are not safe yet. I think they've kept 3 clean sheets in the last 6 home games. Their home stats are not that bad defensively for the kind of team they are and the position they're in. It's their away form that's pretty poor. So I don't think it's out of the question that they get a clean sheet in the Cardiff game. So if you've tripled up on them for a very small amount of money, then that's already a great return before even taking into account the Bournemouth game. Now, Dunk, I get it, not necessarily too much goal threat compared to Duffy, but they've both scored goals this season. They've scored 8 goals between them. And obviously Ryan can get saves as well. And Bournemouth have been pretty poor recently, so there's nothing to say they can't get a double clean sheet. Now, I know that is pretty unlikely, and I probably wouldn't put too much money on it, which probably tells you just how much I think that's likely to happen. But there is a chance, and I don't think 1 clean sheet is out of the question. And people saying they don't want to use a transfer to get rid of a Brighton player or that you'll be stuck with them. But remember, you can bench them. Granted, if you bench Duffy and Dunk every week, you've got to play your other 3 defenders. So for me, that would be Valerie, Doherty and Robertson. I don't know if I want to do that every week. But you can use a transfer from game week 34 to 35. And some people will say don't book in transfers. And I get that, but you're essentially maximising 2 double game weeks. You're getting 1 player for the double game week in 34. You're realising they got a pretty poor game week 35 double, and you're switching to someone that's better. What is wrong with that? People plan all the time for double game weeks. I don't see the big issue with doing it for that. And potentially, I think there's even a slight reason to keep him for the double game week. Yes, it's going to be tough to get a clean sheet in game week 35, but they're going to get you hopefully appearance points and maybe an attack and return, a few saves for Ryan. So even though they've not got the ideal fixtures, they can still pick up points. And I think sometimes we put too much emphasis on the bench boost alone, forgetting there's other game weeks to think about. So I don't think triple Brighton is out of the question. I'm just going for 2 right now because I'm probably going to put Trippier on. I think he's got a good fixture this week, which could be a clean sheet. But I was on it yesterday and I might go back, so we'll see. Triple Spurs. Kane is injured. That is a nightmare. I got to be honest. I taught myself, well, I pretty much knew I was going to have him. And I was kind of happy about that. I was set. I had my structure of my team. And now he's injured and it kind of sucks. What do we do about that? I'm almost 100%, unless we get loads of injury news from Spurs, going triple Spurs still. Their fixtures are too good to ignore. Son basically becomes my number 1 Spurs target now. He's stepped up time and time again when Kane's been injured. And he's done well when Kane's been on the pitch as well. So he now becomes top target. I know there's some worries about rotation. That could happen against Huddersfield because they have gone ahead in the Man City game. I actually think that makes it worse for us because there's a chance they can go through now. So they might want to rest up their players before that next Champions League game. So a little bit worried about that. But again, you've got to think for the rest of the season. So for me, Son's in. And I want another attacker, which will probably be Eriksen. I think Ali, if he's found to be fit, he did go off of a slight injury. So we'll have to wait and see what Pochettino says about that. I think he's a good option as well. But Eriksen's on set pieces and really creative and does like a shot even if it's outside the box. So they're probably my 2. And then if Ori is going to be out a while, I think I prefer Trippier for the defensive options. You could go for someone like Vertonghen, maybe for a surety of starts. And I don't think Lloris is out of the question for 5.4. It's a cheaper way into the defence. But obviously Trippier offers attack and returns as well. So he's currently who I'm going for. So definitely going for triple Spurs. Like what to do with the Kane money? I've basically got Lacazette in and Deeney as my bench boost option, who I probably won't play this week because it's Arsenal. And that's let me get Sterling in. Now I wasn't too keen necessarily on Man City players, but this is where I'm trying to bring it back to basics. Man City are one of the best 2 teams in the league. Crystal Palace away. Crystal Palace haven't been that great at home. They've got a double game week, albeit a tough one. Spurs and Man United, and there's nothing to say that Sterling will play every game. But I think he's really important to Man City, and out of all the midfielders, apart from maybe De Bruyne, is the most important one. Kevin De Bruyne is an option. He got rested or rotated, however you want to look at it, for the Champions League. But he has started a couple of games in a row recently. which maybe thinks he's going to start more matches than not. So I am looking at him as well. For example, I could downgrade Lacazette and do Jota to De Bruyne and have a really power 5 midfield is something I've considered. But it depends how you want to spread it. Aguero an option. He went off in 70 minutes. That makes me think that he's going to play in the Premier League, and he was the number one even when Jesus was around previously, and Jesus couldn't really get much of a look in. So I also think that Aguero now comes into the equation. And to be honest, Kane to Aguero, if you had Kane in your team, like the way you structured your team, you had Kane, then Kane to Aguero looks good. I do like 3-5-2 now, and two players that also come into a contention. I didn't know how cheap they were. Bear with me. It's Shane Long, 4.6 million. Now, I know Shane Long's goal record is awful. Like, really, 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 really awful. And I know there's a chance he maybe doesn't play, but he played well against Liverpool. Obviously went off as pretty tired. I actually listened to a Southampton podcast. That's how dedicated I was to this point today. And they were talking about him, saying that they expect him, if he can stay fit, to keep starting. He's done enough to keep his place now. Could have had another goal against Liverpool, but I guess that comes down to his poor finishing. But for 4.6 million, lets you go 3-5-2 while having someone that could get minutes in the double game week. And remember, outside of the bench boost, you're not really likely to use that spot too much. So the hope is that he gets a 1 game or maybe 2 in game week 35, can get you some points for 4.6 million on your bench boost, and that lets you spend money elsewhere. So I'm not saying I will go with Shane Long, but it's something I've considered. And the other one is Llorente at 5.1. Now, last time Kane was injured, he started 3 of the 4 games that Kane was out. Now, Son did miss one because of international break, and I think Lucas Moura might have been injured. So it's tough to know exactly how Pochettino will line up while Kane is injured. And it is probably worth saying, we've not got confirmation he's out, but it sounds like he's going to be out for the season. So Llorente for 5.1 million could be an option if you want to use an attacking spot. The worry is that Lucas Moura maybe leads the line, and Eriksen, Son and Ali carry on behind, and then obviously Llorente doesn't play. So it's a bit of a worry, but for 5.1 million, you get another Spurs attacker. And again, a really good bench boost option. Lets you go 3-5-2. And you can bench him outside of the game week 35. So definitely worth considering, but I'm 100% still going triple Spurs. I've got triple Wolves on there. I'm not going to speak too much about that. Jimenez is a lock. Doherty, I was a bit worried about him for defensive returns, but he showed me in the FA Cup again the kind of attacking threat he does possess. So I'm tempted to keep him because I got him for 4.4, and I think their double game week is pretty good. So bench boost wise, it's decent enough. And then Jota, I just really like. I think he's playing well at the moment. He's kind of doing what a lot of people thought he would do from the Championship last year. He's a good price. I think Wolves' fixtures are pretty good. So currently he's in. He'll be the one that I'd probably swap out of all 3 of them. Will be the first one to swap out of. I mean, Jimenez is a lock, right? And Doherty is too. So I'm not going to spend too much time about Wolves, but I'm pretty happy with them. And I think the fact that 7th place has still got a potential European spot, and Nuno just doesn't seem like the type of manager that will give up and let his team give up. So I'm still confident enough in Wolves. First season, let's see how high they can get on the table, I think. Kolasinac no longer an option. That's a tough one because I kind of really wanted him in, because although Arsenal have not kept a clean sheet away from home, will that happen for the whole season? It seems unlikely. They do have some pretty tough away games though, and he came off at half time in the last game, which is really worrying because if they go to 4 at the back, there's no guarantee that he plays. He's been playing a lot at left midfield, so for me it would be too much of a risk even at 5 million now. And Leno, because they've not kept the clean sheets, 4.9 million, he's now not in my thoughts at all really now. Lacazette I'm still thinking about. A lot's going to depend on what Arsenal do in the Europa League. He's got a good amount of returns this year. Aubameyang seems to have been out of favour a bit, although apparently he was ill, which is why he couldn't play. So maybe he's going to take some minutes off Lacazette, but it's very rare that he gets no minutes completely. So I'm back looking at him. I do think it's a bit knee-jerk because we all had him in our wildcards and we took him out because of that Everton game. But like I said, Everton have kept a lot of clean sheets. So I'm trying to go back now and think, well, if that Everton game hadn't happened, would I have him in my team? And I would. And Everton have been good defensively, so I'm probably going to put him back in. And it's made it a lot easier because I can get Sterling and Son and Eriksen and Mane, and because I've not got Kane, it's much easier to get Lacazette now. So that is another reason. Man United differential. So I am recording this before the Man United game, and I will not be re-recording this. I will not have time 100% this time. Now, a lot of people say that Man United players are still going to be highly owned. And in the top 10k, if that's what you're going for, look, maybe Pogba is still around 20% even after the wildcards, but to me that's still a good differential in the top 10k. There's only 10,000 managers. They're all thinking a similar way. That means 4 in 5 managers don't own that player. So Rashford could be an option. I just worry that he's going to be pushed out wide if Lukaku plays. Joe on the Scoutcast last night mentioned Lukaku as a potential option instead of Lacazette, instead of Aguero, and I like that. West Ham at home. The slight worries though whether he's going to start again. If he starts in the Champions League and Rashford plays wide, then I think that's a good indication that they might carry that on into the league. And they've got West Ham up next, who have looked poor recently, so I think that could be an option. The double game week is tough, but then towards the end of the season they got Huddersfield and Cardiff, I think it is. So Lukaku's an option. Pogba for me though is just playing a little bit too deep now. Yes, he's got penalties, so I won't count him out completely. But for nearly 9 million, I think I prefer Eriksen or Mane or Son, to be honest. So it's hard to fit him in, I think. But there could be differentials, and don't let anyone tell you that a 20% owned player is not a differential. Because for me in the top 10k, that's pretty decent. Some players get up to like 70, 80, 90%. That is not a differential, but 20% definitely is. Should we keep Hazard? For me, it's simple as I look at the fixtures, and as great as he's been, him and every other player in the league, when they play the top 6, there's less likely chance to get returns, and he plays Man United and Liverpool away in the next 3. And yes, you could say he'll be all over that Man United defence, and we've seen it before. But I think there's no guarantee of that, and that would put me off at his price. Again, Kane being out maybe makes people rethink that, and they could keep him. But for me, it's a no. Where to spend 5.9 million? I'm not gonna lie to you. I had 5.9 million in the bank on my Kane draft, but I've basically got Sterling in to use that money up now, and Lacazette up front. So I've only got 1 million in the bank. So what I do with that 1 million, I might just keep my team as it is. Potentially upgrade Valerie, but I don't really know who to. I quite like the idea of being flexible and having that million in the bank. One thing I have considered is getting Edison in to get Man City defensive coverage for Foster. But again, Ryan has got poor fixtures in 35 and Foster's got good ones, so I kind of like that, whereas Man City's double for the bench boost, again, is not great because they got Spurs. But again, top 6 fixtures can be tight, so maybe I get Edison instead of Foster for the 1 million. And there are slight worries. Someone's put into my head, I can't remember who it was, that Gomez is going to play the FA Cup final for Watford, so potentially he might get the last game of the season to kind of be ready for it. And Ryan has a poor game, I think it's Man City actually, on the last day. So Edison would provide me coverage there, and I still get Ryan for the game week 34 double. So I'm kind of looking at maybe using the money there. Captaincy, so I was on Kane or Duffy, and I've got 2 rules in FPL. One is don't captain a defender, and the other is don't captain a single game week player in a double game week. And I'm not going to go for Murray because he causes me a benching headache. And I just don't know if he's going to play twice. I'm not interested in Camarasa for the same reasons, benching headache, and he doesn't have a double in game week 35. So it's really Duffy or now Son. And because of the Champions League, I'm just not sure if Son definitely plays. Although with Kane out, I feel like he probably will, because he's going to have to probably be the main goal scorer now. But like I said earlier, I just think there's a chance that Brighton can get a double clean sheet. I think 1 is definite possibility, and Duffy's got good goal threat. Already scored 6 goals this season. So I'm currently on Duffy, and I might regret it, but when am I ever really going to get the chance to captain a defender again where I feel like I'm boxed into it? Usually I'll find an excuse to use a attacker, but it's not going to happen in this double game week. I feel like I've got to captain a double game week player more than I don't want to captain a defender, if that makes sense. So I'm going to go with Duffy, but I think Son or Eriksen are great options this week. I'm not really looking at anyone else though, if I'm honest, although Palace have been poor at home. So if you can nail the right Man City attacker, that could be an option too. So for my plans, this is my plan. This is my current team. I'll be streaming at 9 PM on Thursday. No more re-records of this video. I cannot do it. Let me know in the comments below if you've got anything to ask, anything to say on what I've said. Do you hate my team? Love it? Who's your captaincy going to be? Etc. Like the video if you've enjoyed it. Much appreciated. Especially remember, this is the second time I've had to record this, so a like would be appreciated. Subscribe if you're new around here, and I'll catch you next time. Cheers all.